With the introduction of custom player realms alongside this new clothing item, there has been, in my opinion, an influx of inappropriate avatars and experiences within Royale High, and I think this is a really big problem. So today, I'm going to be discussing it as well as my thoughts and a solution that I've come up with that I think could really help resolve this issue, just based on my opinion. So guys, don't jump the horse. I'm giving constructive feedback and then a solution that I think could help with this. So just watch the video. But regardless, for those that may not know, Royale High recently implemented a player realm kind of system where basically players can make their own. I think of it almost like Animal Jam, where you can make your own den and customize it, and then people could visit your den if any of you guys remember Animal Jam. But it's basically like that in Royale High, which I think, first of all, it's a very cool feature, and I think it's really cool and certainly has a place in Royale High. I'm not saying this feature should be taken out because I don't believe that should be the case. I think it's a really good contribution to the game. However, I have previously criticized the way that it was implemented into the game because I feel like it just lacked a lot of safety measures and was just not being, properly integrated into the game with consideration to the fact that there are going to be some weird people that abuse this feature. Now, as soon as this was published, there was a ton of players posting on Reddit and Twitter basically saying, oh my god, I just found this inappropriate player realm, look at this, and a lot of people, which I would say the people that are doing this kind of stuff aren't actually Royale High players, they're more so just trolls that are trying to ruin the experience for everybody else. But there's some people who are making like a Victoria's Secret runway, which is like a clothing brand for like women's undergarments. There was somebody who, as I mentioned previously, someone who made a noose in their dorm and then had a chair right by it, basically signaling that someone was going to off themselves and stuff like that, like just stuff like that was really inappropriate. And as these reports came in, Royale High respectfully went to Twitter and was like, hey guys, thanks for letting us know, we're trying to moderate this. And then somebody in the comment section basically suggested that they use a special hashtag so that players could go to Twitter and basically use the hashtag and provide screenshots of players who are violating the rules. Because at the time of this, thing being implemented, there was really no safety features in place or report features in place, which is really concerning in my opinion. Now, as you can imagine, the hashtag was used by a variety of players to basically report player realms, which I will be showing on the screen, I'm sure. And what ended up happening was Royale High ended up implementing this feature, which basically gives you like a warning before you open a realm with these rules. Global Player Realm Guidelines. Royale High is a family-friendly environment, and all players are expected to help maintain this standard. Please review the guidelines below. Realms that violate these rules may be removed, and accounts may be moderated. Rules, realm names, descriptions, and signage must be appropriate for all ages. Do not share or display obscene, suggestive, or inappropriate images, models, or decals. Items, designs, or themes that are not PG appropriate are not allowed. Realms may not depict or imply locations or activities that are not suitable for a PG audience, and content intended to bypass Roblox moderation or filters is prohibited. Help keep Royale High a creative, magical, and safe place for everyone. And then you click agree. And to this point, which I understand there's obviously lots on their plate, but that, from what I've seen, has been the only change to the safety standards with the player realms, which in my opinion is highly concerning. Because yes, you can have guidelines set out, which in my opinion, not to, beat a dead horse, this should have been there from the beginning. It shouldn't have been an afterthought. But regardless, it's added now, so that's good. But there's these rules here, and you're just asking players to agree to it and say, yeah, I agree. But the issue is that the moderation and the main form of moderation for these inappropriate player realms, from what I've seen, which correct me if I'm wrong, still seems to occur through Twitter, which the biggest red flag here is that the players that are most victimized by this, i.e. children, the majority of them don't have access to Twitter because Twitter is a 13 plus platform, which means that if you're like 8 years old, 9 years old, 12 years old even, right, and unless you go and get a parent or a close friend to report it for you, you have no way of effectively reporting players abusing the realm system when you are the player themselves that is most impacted by these inappropriate player realms. Someone who's 17 years old and sees an inappropriate experience or something, it sucks, but at the end of the day, they're 17 years old. It's not the same as like a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old seeing that kind of content. It's just not the same because a 17-year-old already kind of has a grasp with that kind of stuff. And so in my opinion, it's highly concerning that there still seems to be no effective way in-game to moderate this stuff. Players should not have to download an external application, a social media application that poses all sorts of risk for player safety and communication just to report something that should be effectively moderated by the people who initiated this feature being added to the game in the first place. It just seems so counterintuitive to make people go to an outside platform lacking the protection features, which I say protection features loosely, that Roblox offers to minors on their platform, and then puts those kids on I'm not saying Royale High encourages people to go to Twitter or is encouraging children to make accounts. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when the only method you have for people to effectively report player realms, to my understanding what you advertise, is people have to go to Twitter, that then basically disadvantages a massive chunk of your player base because they cannot go and report realms when they see them because they don't have Twitter, right? So the whole thing's just very, in my opinion, it's just convoluted, doesn't make a lot of sense. Now, unfortunately, something I've also seen with player realms is there's been at least from my experience, which I can only speak to my experiences, I'm not saying this as 100% fact, but based on what I have personally seen on my childhood account that I play real high on, there has been a number of people abusing this new top. Now, this top is called the Sea Sweetheart Lace Mermaid Top. And for a lot of people, I think some people may not recognize what this kind of resembles, which I'm not trying to be weird about it. But basically, this looks like an open front cami top is what this is called. And an example of it in real life could be this garage mesh flyaway cami top, which I personally own. And that's why I immediately recognize this top, which to be fair, this top is beautifully modeled. It's gorgeous. Like, obviously, it's a really pretty top and it's highly wanted in the community. There's a lot of people trading for it right now. Now, unfortunately, this top, at least where I live, is also associated with women's undergarments, and specifically women's undergarments for a specific time of day, if you get what I mean. And I went ahead and did some research just to make sure this wasn't me just being biased or not understanding the actual meaning behind a top like this. And Google confirmed and said, yes, an open front cami top, especially one with delicate fabric like satin or lace, which this top does have lace around it, are designed for revealing or intimate wear, is considered lingerie or sleepwear. So sometimes these kind of clothes can be considered lingerie, which I'm sure Royale High didn't intend for this to be what happened, but what has happened, what I've noticed, is that there has been a lot of servers, example ones that are trying to depict clubs or inappropriate dancing halls, if you get what I mean, and stuff like that, where the players in those realms are wearing these kind of tops and are basically pretending that these tops are undergarments because they're revealing and they show cleavage on the Royale High model, which inherently you would expect that people wouldn't do this kind of stuff because it's just weird and bizarre, and people should be allowed to have a top like this, especially with Roblox moderating women's bodies so heavily. Tops like this are really important to have freedom of expression and to be able to express yourself, but at the same time, there's unfortunately a group of people that are abusing these features and abusing these tops and are using them to depict and to act out inappropriate behaviors inside of Royale High. And this brings me back to my point about the lack of effective reporting methods for players who are witnessing inappropriate behavior. So on top of the player realms that are basically allowing players to go into isolated environments with people, you're also having these tops, which although inherently shouldn't be sexualized, are being sexualized by people who have, bad intentions within the game. And so that's what brings me to my solution in this scenario, because Royale High put out a post earlier this week saying that it's not that much of a widespread, problem as some people are saying it is, which I don't know if they're referring to me, but personally, from my experience, it is a widespread problem. That is my experience, and I've joined player realms, and some of the player realms that are recommended are not, in my personal opinion, safe. They are depicting very suggestive themes. They're showing, there's one that I saw on Twitter that somebody posted. It's an anime, quite literally, about certain kinds of toys. And people are posting pictures of those in their realms and making like these inappropriate dorms and stuff like that. And I know a game obviously doesn't want to be like, oh my god, guys, this is such a big problem, because it would create a lot of community, tension. It would make people anxious and stuff like that, which in the grand scheme of things, can I say how vast this problem is? No. But based on my experience, I have seen, I would say, I don't know, I can't even put a number to it, but there's been a number of realms that should not have been on there that were on Royale High, which I think should never happen in the first place, which I understand to a degree. You can't always moderate everything super effectively, and there's a lot to do with this sort of stuff, and so I'm not saying it's easy, but what I'm saying is when you implement something like this, there needs to be safeguards in place, because you, as a game developer, would recognize that there will be some bad actors that abuse the system. And so that's why, with my terrible editing skills, please, just cut me some slack here, I went ahead and made a cute little UI button for something that I propose is the player safety system. Now, basically, if you don't know what this is, there's like a shield on the side. That's the Valkyrie shield. And I just took it, and I was lucky enough to have my thumbnail editor kind of help me figure out how to do some of this stuff. So that's why it's not very good quality, because I don't really know what I'm doing, but basically, I just took the Valkyrie shield, I put the heart on it bigger to basically talk about how the Valkyrie shield is shielding players from inappropriate conduct. It's almost kind of like a sheriff badge is what I was going for here. And then I added the Royale High type wings behind it, the heart, and it just says player safety. And based on the vision that I have for this, which I will put it on a picture to show you on the screen, but it'd be a button on the side of your screen that you could then click to take a screenshot of a player's avatar or a dorm or something that was inappropriate, and then that would immediately be sent to the Royale High support team, which then someone could directly review the ticket and take appropriate moderation action without telling users that they need to leave Royale High in the Roblox platform to go to an alternative platform to file a report, i.e. Twitter, using the Twitter hashtag. In my opinion, having a button like this would help resolve this issue astronomically, because not only would it allow players to stay within the game so they don't have to go to external, potentially unsafe social media platforms, but it would allow evidence to be directly shared with Royale High staff, which I think is really important here, because I find sometimes people use the Royale High hashtag and they don't provide evidence, or they're being kind of like vague with what they're reporting, because there's sometimes like, social cues or social events that not everybody understands. So when you're taking a screenshot of maybe a dorm that you think is inappropriate, and maybe somebody on the support team or moderation team doesn't understand what that means, having context with something like this I think would be very, very useful. And then it helps just streamline the process. So somebody doesn't have to go through Twitter and read all the hashtag posts. They can just go through, I don't know, a system where you can submit a form and maybe it goes to a Dropbox or something, and then you can go through and take appropriate moderation action. Now, obviously, I don't know quite how difficult or if it's even possible for Royale High to enable an option where you can take a picture using some a Royale High button or something like that, and the picture would be uploaded to a ticket system. I'm not sure if that's a possibility, and honestly, I don't have enough game dev experience for this to be a possibility, but even if, example, taking a screenshot within Royale High was impossible, just having like a UI that would pop up where you put in the player's username and you write what happened and you take a screenshot, maybe someone could follow up with you, or they can just kind of look into it and visit that player's realm themselves. That would enable Royale High to streamline this process, and in my opinion would be much more effective than scrolling through Twitter trying to find inappropriate player realms from self-reported realms from people who had the ability to go to an alternative platform. So anyways, with all that in mind, this is my really terrible little button that I've made up, but I think this would be a really good contribution because it would allow players to report inappropriate outfits alongside inappropriate dorms and just any sort of inappropriate behavior in Royale High, which in my opinion would uphold Royale High's standards regarding the safe community they want to build for everybody, especially those who are younger and should not, in my opinion, ever be exposed to that kind of content. So anyways, with that in mind, I know it's a lot easier said than done, but I do hope that maybe somebody on the team would take this into consideration if more people talked about it, because I think it is a problem in the game. Regardless of how big the problem is, it's still a problem, and nobody should be impacted by this kind of stuff. And it's, in my opinion, not resolved until there's 0 cases of this. Just because there's not like a million people being impacted by it does not mean it's not a problem that needs to be addressed. So anyways, let me know your thoughts on this down below. Have you seen people abusing this new top or abusing the player realm system? I'd love to know what you guys think about it down below. And thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time. Bye bye!